Okay, so now this is take two. We are doing a video with my brothers Mike and Sam, and we're talking about five pictures from our past that just meant something to us, and we're just talking about history and memories. And so Sam will start us off again.
Okay, so that picture evolved over a few minutes. It was a birthday. I think it was my first birthday. Maybe my second, oh, probably my first. And uh, the follow-up picture to the one that you see is the one I really thought I was picking, but it wasn't in the collection. Um, but it's a picture of me with cake smeared all over and me holding a chicken bone. And so, because of that picture, my sister called me Bone Baby. And all through our youth together, she just called me Bone.
I
So that
remember
was
that.
the source of that nickname was that same birthday, just a few minutes later after I made a mess of everything.
And occasionally she still calls you that,
Sometimes, yeah.
which is pretty funny.
I never knew where Bone came from, the nickname Bone.
Yep.
And I know the picture you're talking about, the one you meant to get. Um, but that's close enough. You can just imagine a bone in your hand.
A chicken bone and
But
with cake smeared all over.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I know the picture you're talking about. It's a good one. Mike, you're number five or number
Okay.
one, whichever. No order, so just the one that you picked as number one.
Well, I sent you an email with the description of it because I
Yeah.
didn't know.
So number one is Us by the Truck, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
go
So
for it.
that's in Tranquility, and I'm holding a gopher. And I was digging a hole out back. I loved to dig holes when I was growing up, and I just saw the dirt fall away from the edge of the hole, and this gopher stuck its head out. So I ran inside and got some carrots, some pieces of carrots, and I fed him. And he would come out and play with me all the time. Of course, he wanted the food, and we became buds. And then I let him go before we moved.
Well,
I never kept him in a box or anything. I just kept him, and he just
okay.
was there.
So your memory's a little bit off on what occurred. His name was George. We named him George.
Didn't I say George?
No, you just said a mouse, but his name was George, and he actually ended up dying. Um, we didn't keep him in captivity or anything. He just came to us all the time. I remember that. Um, and actually, that was a good life lesson for me. I almost used this picture because I remember mom, when Grandpa Brimer died, would equate it to George and how they're together now and everything. And I could equate that because I went through the loss of the little mouse that we found in the field.
Interesting.
You know what's funny about that though is that illustrates, Mike, your long history with wild animals. And
Oh,
wasn't it you that caught Jeremiah and put him in the bathtub?
that was me.
I
Or
was
was that
9 years
John?
old, so that would have
Yeah,
been 73.
yeah, that was me.
That
You guys all tried to catch him, and I just walked up and grabbed him.
he was a giant bullfrog, and John decided that he needed a home, so he put him in the bathtub. And then Sally went in to take a bath, and all of a sudden you heard this screaming because Jeremiah jumped in the tub with her.
It was
Pretty
pretty
funny.
awesome.
That was cool.
Okay, so mine, my first pick is the one of me by the big TV, and the reason that I picked that because it was the first time we really got an upgrade as far as our television sets and stuff. We went from that black and white that we had in Laramie to this, and this was a behemoth. Not only was it a huge console because it's the one with stereo in it and stuff, but it was color. We had the black and white TV in Laramie, and then we go to that one, and I loved it. But that was also my start of video games. Was Pong with the black and white TV, but we got the Atari on that TV, and it was so amazing, just amazing. I loved that console. It was cool. And that console lasted us a long time. You know,
Yeah,
I
dude.
I remember Dad was able to go in and fix that a few times, and you know there were actually the tubes and stuff to replace, and he actually did it. It was like, man, Dad was amazing when it came to stuff like that.
Yeah, he kept things going.
That
Yeah,
that turntable and all that.
uh,
That was that I when I worked at Desert Industries when I first got to Salt Lake, two of those came through exactly the same models,
that's
and I
awesome.
wanted to buy one so bad, but I thought, how am I going to get that home?
Uh, Not only that, where are
Just
you going to
wrapped in my
keep it?
back.
It's like those
What
took
right?
up so much
I would have had
space.
to just take out the couch out of the front room.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
All right, your second pick, Sam.
So this one is a picture of Christmas at Grandma and Grandpa Barnes' house in Goshen.
Yeah,
And the reason I chose this because my earliest memory is of Christmas when I was 3, and Grandma and Grandpa went to great lengths to make that kind of a special occasion. And Mike is there, and I had forgotten. I knew that Mike had sucked on his fingers for a good part of his childhood, but I forgot that he sucked on these last
Yeah.
fingers. And that picture illustrates those 2 fingers in his mouth. And that just reminds me of Mike as a little kid because he always had his fingers in his mouth, always. It's pretty funny. But yeah, those were good times. You know, that was back when Sally and I got along really well. And of course, she lived there and we would visit quite often. And Grandma and Grandpa really made extraordinary efforts to make those early Christmases special to us.
that's cool. Mike, your second one.
Okay, so my second one on there, I'm trying to bring it up so I
Yeah,
can look at the pictures that I sent you. What do you have the
Yeah.
list again?
yeah, it's grandma's trailer.
Oh, yeah, okay. And Grandma's standing beside me in the picture. She's in the picture, right?
No, and there's nobody in the picture. It's just a picture of grandma's place. Up on on
Rattlesnake Road. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. That was my ultimate playground. That was the best playground I've ever had.
it was an awesome place.
There was a rock pile out back that Sam would get up on, and he'd be like, "Let's play King of the Hill," and we would play King of the Hill. And of course, he's big. We try to knock him off, and nope.
Just like superheroes, you know, we would always lose.
Yep.
Benefits being the biggest.
Yeah, I remember all the mushrooms and the moss growing on the north sides of the trees, and all the snakes. There were so many snakes out in that
Oh,
that
ton
property.
of snakes.
Yeah, that was good times. I like that. And then if you walk down the road, which we did a lot, and Grandma would be like, "Hey, go get some blackberries. I'll make you a pie." And
Yeah,
we'd go down and we'd pick the blackberries right off the side of the dirt road, and they were huge. They were like the size of your thumb. And we'd have to fight the wasps for them. That was awesome.
You know what's sad? You look that property up on Google Earth now,
oh, I
and
know.
they've clear cut the entire 40 acres. So our playground, so to speak, has been completely clear cut, and they didn't replant or anything. It's just
Really?
just a big
Yeah.
open field now.
Now, a lot of great memories up there. Absolutely loved it up there. And Mike's next picture is a story from that time, but
Yeah.
we'll get to that soon. Okay, my next picture is the one with me holding the lamb. And to me, that was just awesome because that little lamb loved me.
Yeah, it did.
And it was a one-eyed lamb. I guess he had his eye poked out or something. I don't know. But he would just come up to me and just wanted me to hold him. And so I would walk around with him, and it was just awesome because that's one thing I love about animals is that animals teach us. Animals love us, unconditionally, and they don't care what you look like or who you are. If you treat them kind, they treat you kind, and it was like that was just a heart softening time for me because I loved that little lamb, absolutely
Where
loved it.
where was that, John?
That was in Wyoming when we first moved there.
Ah, yeah.
And
The
we
Spains.
took
We
over that
lived
house.
in the Spain's house, yeah.
Yeah. And I loved that. That was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun to take care of the animals. We were there for 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. I remember they had the dartboard in the garage and everything, and we'd play darts and take care of the
Yeah.
animals, and it was a fun time for me, And then I went to school.
Can you
So
imagine turning over your home to a family you don't know
yeah, that was pretty
for two
trusting.
weeks? It really was. And
You wouldn't do
I,
that today.
no, probably not. Although mom made sure that, the we behaved and
Yeah.
we got all the chores done that they had outlined. And so,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Yep. I remember that.
I remember the one night that the sheep didn't come in, and the evening was coming on. It was getting dark, and we had to have the sheep and all the livestock in the pen, and we couldn't for the life of us get them to come in. And John comes in a little bit later, goes, "All right, I got them in," and he took some of that food in the can. He was like, "Here, sheep, sheep, sheep," and he shook the can, and they all came running to him.
Yeah, they
Huh.
liked me.
Yeah, you
I,
saved the day.
I treated their little one-eyed sheep really nice, and so they all liked me.
Yeah,
So
it was like Shaun the sheep.
I don't remember
yeah.
that. Huh.
Okay. Number
Yeah, you saved the
20.
day because there's a lot of predators, coyotes out there that
Oh
would
yeah.
just scrumptious those sheep. They'd smorgasbord them.
Now this next one's a good story. It sounds.
It's not really much of a story, but you know that if I hear something, I can play it on the
Yeah.
piano or an approximation of it, right? And I learned at a very early age, and I'm only like 3 or 4 in this picture, but I often people ask me, well, how do you learn to do what you do? And I described this keyboard. I never dreamed there'd be a picture of it. I even showed it to my wife this morning. I said, "You're not going to believe this, but that keyboard I kept telling you about," and I showed her the picture. And the only thing my wife would say is, "You are a lot cuter than." So, but you notice over there on the left, there's all these buttons, and those buttons correspond to chords, just chords. There's C, D, F, G, A, and E. And so all the common chords. And I quickly learned that there was a correlation between pressing one of those buttons and a combination of the keys. And then before I even could add 2 numbers, I realized that there was a mathematical, a relationship between notes. And then I realized at a very early age, I could play any song in any key because the relationships were all the same. And I learned all that from that organ.
That is
And
cool.
and even today, I mean, I have a piano that Christy doesn't like very much because she doesn't like its looks very much. But when I finally decided to invest in Forever Piano, I probably played 1,000 of them before I found the one that played me. And as far as musical instruments go, that is my prize. Even though my wife hates it, but its action and sound just resonate with my soul, and I can blame that lifelong love affair with piano to that organ.
That's cool. I'd always wish I had learned how to play.
Sam, you said Christy said you were a lot cuter then. The
Yeah.
comeback is just wait till the resurrection. That's nothing.
Uh,
That's nothing.
well, unfortunately, my next picture will put the lie to that because if that's what I look like forever, then poor Christy's got a lot to put up with.
Well, you could look like Mike in his next picture.
All right.
All right,
All right.
Mike.
We call this one the Alfred E. Newman picture. I had to go to the hospital for that and get a shot. And I made the nurses laugh by just smiling because it seriously moved my face in a weird way. I was burning trash for my grandma. I think we all were really. I just got rambunctious about it, and everybody else was like, "Okay, it's done," and they left. And I don't know if it's kind of blurry still, but I just remember, oh, I'll just take some of this side brush around the trees and throw it in there too and burn that as well. Well, I picked a whole bunch of poison oak, and the Oregonian poison oak is absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
Ever since then, though, I haven't gotten poison oak more than a rash for a day or two. I just don't get poison oak, and I don't know about now. It's been so many years, but the story comes to mind of the Indian tribe, and don't ask me what the specifics on this. They would roll up a poison oak leaf in some bread, some Johnny bread, and they would swallow it. They would swallow it as quickly as they could, not chew it. And if they survived it, they'd never get poison oak again. That's just a story I heard. I don't know if it's true.
Huh.
Never heard of that.
Well, I inhaled it and I never got poison oak again. So there has to be something to that story, I think.
It was awesome. It was hilarious.
You know, it's funny. I quite often talk to my kids about how the world they grew up in is so different than the world we grew up in. And one of the things that I've told them about that it just offends their sensibilities, which it shouldn't, but it does, is how we used to burn our trash. And
We do here.
well, yeah, you're way up in Alaska, but you know, we would collect our trash and burn it, and then what was left over is usually the tin cans and stuff. We'd throw that away. But you know, I grew up burning our trash. And boy, the trouble you'd get into today if you did that,
Oh,
be a
yeah.
lot. It's illegal here in Utah.
Really?
Well, here there's guidelines to it, of course, and then there's about 3 months out of the year where you have to check a website to make sure it's okay to and everything.
Yeah.
But the other 9 months out of the year, it's fine because it's so wet here. So, all right, my next picture, the one of me holding Jennifer. And this is when I was 10 years old and I became an uncle. And knowing what I know now, you know, I was never going to be able to be a parent. But I became an uncle and I was obviously a kid and green to it and stuff. But I think I grew into being a pretty good uncle to my nieces and nephews.
You did.
And treating them like they were mine and loving them like they were mine and giving them someone they can turn to, someone they can talk to, someone they can trust. And, you know, it's amazing because I look at it and I'm going, yeah, oh, we are running out of time, but let's continue. Hold on, because we still got a few minutes. Okay, and so just knowing that I could be an influence in the children's lives, helping them when they needed it, growing up with them. You know, it is a small consolation, you know, to not being able to have my own kids. But it is somewhat of a consolation, you know. It did make me feel good knowing that, you know, kind of like when Ryan came in, woke me up when she was a little girl, and she woke me up, and I like, well, what's up? And she goes, "You're my favorite uncle." It's like, I love you, kid. Now let me go back to sleep.
Get out of here.
You know, I don't know about anybody else's kids or how they reacted to the Giles side of the grandparents and of course the uncles. But my kids, they really identified closely with especially grandma, mom, and the Giles side of things. It's referenced a lot, and we have a funeral coming up for Christy's mom next Tuesday, and two of my kids aren't even going to make the trip. They just because they were so disconnected. So really, that sense of extended family. I was so grateful, even to Dad. Dad wasn't the greatest father, but he was a pretty good grandfather,
He was.
and I appreciated that very, very much.
Yeah,
So,
totally. Okay, so now we are on to picture number 4. Picture number 4.
report.
Sam.
Yep. So this is right before my mission, and I don't have any pictures from earlier days. The 70s and 80s are pretty much lost as far as any kind of picture recordings go. So the reason I picked this because when I graduated from high school and I went to work as a night security guard at OEM, the facility Dad was building in Flagstaff. And I decided that I was going to get a dog to walk my rounds with me. So I went to the pound and I found this oversized, very fierce looking dog, totally black. And I thought that's the kind of dog we need to do my rounds with. Her name was Ebony, and I didn't know this at the time, but she was a Great Dane. I had no experience with Great Danes, and didn't realize what big goofballs they were. And that quickly became our family's favorite breed of dog. And ever since we got Ebony, we've always had a Great Dane until I think Hagrid was the last. And then now, John, you've got a Great Dane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it kind of started a love affair with Great Danes because they're the goofiest, happiest, wonderful, most awesome dog ever. There are some downsides, which is why I don't have one today. But the upside, though, is that they were wonderful. And this particular Great Dane's name was Thor. You guys remember Thor? And Thor, when he was trained by his previous owner, he was trained to respond to hand signals. You could point up, and Thor would bark. You could point down, he'd lay down, and various other hand signals. One time, the elders came to our house on Buchanan Street. It was after my mission. And I didn't know that Elder Kitchen, one of the missionaries serving in our area, was deathly afraid of dogs. And he came and he sat in the rocking chair, and I was behind him. And Thor was usually kept outside. I didn't know why, but Mom would put him out so that Elder Kitchen could be comfortable in the house. Well, somebody went out the sliding door or something. I don't know how or why, but Thor came in. And Great Danes, they just want to love everybody. And so he immediately runs up to Elder Kitchen. Now, by this time, Thor was getting on in age and didn't have that big Great Dane robust bark, that Great Danes are known for. And so I'm standing behind Elder Kitchen thinking that's funny, and I'm pointing up like this to Thor, and Thor is trying to bark, but it comes out just as a growl. "Arr, arr," Elder Kitchen wet his pants. And, of course, our mom, she was never one to let a golden moment go by. She says, "Oh, nobody move. Nobody say a word. Just everybody freeze." It's wondering what's going on. And meanwhile, poor Elder Kitchen, he just lost it. It was very funny.
All right, Mike. Your next one, number 4.
And what's the title on it again?
It's you holding the chain of fish.
Oh yeah, that's the fishing experience I had since I was young. I always went fishing and I just couldn't stop fishing, so I like that picture. I wish we could find a bunch of the other pictures, like the catfish that I caught at Lake Mary when I set my pole up and I thought I kicked it over and it went skidding into the water, slowly just going into the lake. And we were warned, of that lake has a mud bed to it. Don't go into it. You can get sucked under. And I dove in. I was like, screw that. That's my pole. And I clawed my way out onto the bank, grabbed that pole, and I pulled that fish. It was a 10-pound catfish.
Nice.
So,
But, yeah.
Just so you know, Mike, you're infamous in our family anyway for the whole bluegill saga with the fish that you were going to keep.
Yep.
And putting it in the bathtub, and mom, screeching and discovering that, and putting it out in the backyard, building a pond, and all the cats feasted. And in fact, Christie's actually published a children's book with that story.
Oh, nice.
And it's entitled "So Long, Catfish."
So long, catfish. That's good.
That was awesome.
I remember when I made that tank, I took 4x8 sheets of plywood. Dad had a lot of wood and some 4x4s, and I built it, and then I put Visqueen into it, and then I put all my stuff in it, and then I filled it with water and put the fish in. Well, I nailed the boards. I didn't screw the boards in. I nailed the boards into the outside of the 4x4s. And so stress popped one of the sides off during the night, and we had a ton of cats in our yard. And they were just having a field day.
Yes,
I was sad because I wanted my terrarium. It was pretty awesome.
Well,
There was
not only fish, but there was crawdads in there.
Yeah, and there was like all sorts of stuff in there. But the bluegills that I caught was up at Cataract Lake before they shut it down.
Up in Williams, yeah.
Yeah, and I just put the hook in the water, didn't even bait the hook, and the bluegills would snag the hook. So I just kept catching them, and I caught 352 of them. And
Slightly above the limit, but cool.
Yeah, I could have gotten in big trouble for that. But I had them on a rope, and I took them home. And lo and behold, I put them in the bathtub, and they all revived except for one. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Bluegill are tough fish.
Yeah, they are. All right. My picture is the one of the Salinas second ward basketball team. Now, there's a reason for that, and that is because that is when I first really came into my own playing ball, because everybody was like, oh, Jeff's the god of basketball, and, shut up, John. And so then I actually started getting decent. And what's sad is the year after that, I got easily 5 times better than I was that year. And then each year I kept getting better and better. And one of the big regrets that I have is I wish that my family had seen me. I wish that you guys had seen me between the age of about 25 to 30 play ball, because I got dang good. I was playing with a lot of ex-college players, current college players, and some pro players that came to the club. They're like from the Mexican League, that kind of thing, but pro players. And, I was mixing with them, no problem, and had a lot of encouragement when I was in a basketball class. Me and Jeff talked about it in our video. And I remember the coach took me aside one day, and he's like, you are the best shooter I have ever seen. Because I was right at home on those courts. I mean, I could not miss on those courts. And so like they would divide up the teams, and I had to be on the very worst team, and we'd always make it to the championship. And the coach was like, he's like, no, I'm not going to let you play with them. I'm not going to let you play with them. You know, you're going to get these guys on your team. And it was awesome, you know, because it was, I mean, to me, that was respect, you know?
Yeah, you hit
And,
those threes pretty consistent.
Well, I could hit from anywhere on the court. I seriously, the half court was my range.
Yeah, it was.
And in fact, one time we were playing the football team. They put together an intramural team, and so for intramurals, we were playing them. And of course, their version it was like playing
Rugby?
with the Tongans and the Samoans. You know, it's like they love you, but they're going to beat the crap out of you.
Yeah,
And
they're awesome.
and it was so funny because one play we beat them, which they were pissed. You know, you don't get them mad, but they love you afterwards. But during the game, oh, they hated me. And it was so funny because that to get to halftime, we had like 7 seconds left on the clock. And the guys were just like, John, just go over to the volleyball line. They're not going to guard you there. And we'll just kick it out to you. And so in the half, they just kicked it out to me. They didn't guard me. I nailed it, you know, and it was just amazing. But my game improved so drastically. It wasn't just threes. I mean, yes, I had a great 3-point shot, but I could do everything. And you know, it was awesome when one time I went over to play in a church game for the 4th ward, Mike, our student ward. And I had about 55 points. And it was so funny because we got to the last minute of the game, and it was a close game. And one of our guys, you know, hadn't played all game. And I'm like, okay, guys, somebody needs to let him in. You know, just get him a couple minutes because, you know, I mean, if I go out, we're going to lose. And because the other team was good. And nobody was letting him in. So I said, hey, come in for me. And he came in. I sat down. We lost the game. And I was like, told you. You know? And that was cool because after that, one of the teachers there at the Institute just came up to me and he's just like, I have never seen a shooting performance like that. It's like, you would have won if you stayed in. I'm like, yeah, no, but they wouldn't let him in. So, you know, so we ended up.
How many minutes did he have to play?
It was only a couple, like seriously 2. But they weren't letting him in. And finally, I was just like, fine, I'll sit out. You know, he needs to come in. And so they came in, and it was a close game. Of course, we would have won if I was in, but, you know.
Well, you know, kind of an interesting story with that picture. You know, signed the coach, and the way that I used you, because you had an innate understanding of ball movement, and so I used that.
Yeah.
And you were basically just the point man. You know, you weren't the point guard because
we ran a high post.
Yeah, we just ran a high post point.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I remember all I cared about was just watching you guys run the plays that we had diagrammed, and you know, watching how you unfolded the plays, and you knew them very well. And I remember Jeff wandered over to the bench. He said, Sam, you got to let up. And we were up like 72-20 or something. It was some ridiculous score like that.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I had no idea what the score was. I was so engrossed in just watching the plays unfold and coaching each individual player because everybody had strengths that I knew that could be used, you know, and so I realized that, and you know, you see all the little boys in front, you know, they weren't supposed to play. And I asked Bishop Anderson if I could bring the the 12 and 13, the deacons in
Yeah.
and let them play with us. And so, I substituted everybody out. And you came over to me and you said, I haven't scored 1 point. And I want to score. And I
Yeah.
said, okay, fine. I put
Should have
you
stuck
back
to your
in. We
guns.
ran the high post again. This time, instead of dropping it off, you cut to the basket. You had the shot. You broke your ankle.
Yeah.
And we did not have you for the rest of the season. What I
Until
should have done is said, John, shut up, sit down. You can score next game.
yes, you should have.
Yeah. But anyway, and what's funny is that all the boys in the back, with the exception of Ralph and Ray, who were wild cards at best, I mean, Ray was great. He was very athletic, but he threw up a lot of wild shots,
Yeah.
And I loved Ralph's heart, man. I mean, he went after rebounds. He'd growl and, kind of scare people, and but they ended up being the only two boys I had left for the rest of the season, and a bunch of undersized deacons.
Yep.
Because I lost John Kreisel, lost his dad was branch president.
Rice.
Rice, yeah, lost him. Rice was a decent outside shooter, and
Yeah.
we ran a couple plays every game for him, but he just didn't feel like the team wasn't good enough after that, so he stopped coming.
Yeah.
Wouldn't. I was like, well, you've got to work hard to make the team better. No. John's out. Both Johns, John Kreisel and John Giles. And so anyway, we did win another game. We almost won our last game.
Yeah.
That's the
I
best
came back
team.
for that one.
You didn't play in that one.
I played in the last one.
I don't think you did.
Yeah, I did. I was actually the 2 days after I got my cast off, and I played in that one. I shouldn't have.
Do you
but-
remember? Do you remember what my strategy was to win that
Yep.
game?
Yeah.
What was it?
Foul everybody out.
Foul everybody out, and I almost did it. They were down to 4 players, each of them with 4 fouls each, and then the rest swallowed their whistles.
Yeah.
And remember, I was trying to get a timeout, and Seth. That was the best. I told Seth, you got to foul him. You got to foul him. We're going to stop the clock because I was out of timeouts. You got to stop the clock. So he'd go over and he'd touch the player with the ball. He'd just touch him like this, kind of paw at him a little bit. No, you got to hit him. He kept pawing. No, you got to hit him. And I was just being emphatic. So he just kind of looked around, and so he just hauled back and he nailed him right between the legs. And I mean, just dropped that kid to the floor. And I was like, oh no.
It was
After
awesome.
that, I stopped. The refs were not going to blow the last whistle. They just weren't going to do
Yeah.
it.
It was awesome. All right.
We were 1 foul away from winning our last game.
Yeah. All right.
Of course, the score was like 70-2.
Yeah.
And remember, Ray's mom, Sister Brown, came over and she kept apologizing for Ray. And I was like, no, I want Ray taking every shot. He's the only one that can get the ball high enough to get near the basket. It's pretty funny.
All right. Our last pitcher. Number 5.
Number 5. Okay. As much as I loved my extended family, and I have very fond memories growing up with my family. I know that some of you don't. Some of you have some very painful memories, but most of mine are pretty positive. And I got the benefit of Dad when he was trying to be a good dad, and that was in my younger life. When I was before we moved to Elizabeth Street, I'd say. So from about 10, up to about my 10th year, Dad really tried hard to be a family man, and after that he kind of quit trying, but I have very fond memories of the Giles Folly. you know, and we moved 28 times. You know, I moved 28 times before, but I can honestly say that my life began when I met and married my wife. And I discovered that not only did I love God, not only did I love my country, and but I learned how much I could love my family. And of course, Christy is the biggest part of that. And that ugly car in the background, I paid $500 for it. Christy negotiated in Spanish for it.
Nice.
And fun fact about that car, Toyota back in those days, the little Corollas, they put these very, very low end engines that had a tremendous amount of low end torque. And Christy had never driven a manual before. It was a little 4-speed. And so she would put it in first gear and she would just dump the clutch. And that car just chug, 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 and take off. And it turned out you could do that all the way up to third gear, and that little Toyota engine would chug, 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 and take off. Well, then when we sold that, we bought a Honda. Now, Honda's the opposite of Toyota. Honda's torque comes in at high revs, you know, at high RPMs. And so, you know, Christy, she kept killing it. She kept, you know, because she was used to Toyota, she just drop the clutch and car would just die instead of chugging along. So I had to teach her to rev the engine, but she never quite mastered it. And so every time Christy would take off, she was just squealing those tires, just burning out, you know, burning rubber, you know, because she would just floor it and then dump the clutch. And it was pretty funny. So yeah, we Christy's had automatics ever since then.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, Mike, your last picture.
My last picture, and what's this picture of? Oh, it's the Ravens.
Yep.
Those I tried to do them in age, a chronological age. You know, like my youngest to my oldest.
Well, this was in Ogden, right?
No.
This was in Taylor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Out in Taylor.
Didn't you have a Raven in Ogden?
Oh yeah, his name was Silva.
Okay.
In fact, a funny story about that Raven, I let it go, and it would
Yeah.
always come back and sit on the roof and wait for me.
Yep.
And I'd go out and it would all of a sudden it would just pop onto my shoulder and scream in my ear like, "Hey buddy, what's up?" And I'd be like, "Hey buddy," and I always give him a treat. And I was going to church one day. I hadn't seen this Raven for probably 2 weeks. I was going to church, got to the back door, went to open the door, and this black fleur of feathers nails me right in the shoulder. And this was a bit of time later, I think. But it hit me, and he just started cawing in my ear. And I looked over, and I was like, "It's Silva." And I'm like, "Where have you been?" And then it just bantered at me for a bit, and I scratched him a bit, and then he took off and went back over a fence in the adjacent yard where there were chickens and just hung out with the chickens. I guess it ended up thinking it was a chicken. And the guy that I don't know how I found this out, but the guy that had the chickens, it came in and started pecking with the chickens, not even hurting the chickens at all. Because they're raptors. I mean, they're aggressive too,
Yeah.
but it didn't hurt the chickens, and the guy adopted it as one of his birds, so he liked it.
Nice.
So I was like, and that's the last time I saw Silva. But this one and this picture in Taylor was where we went and raided that nest, and we got the babies, and we played with them, and then we just kept them, and they were buds. They were buds.
Yeah, but then we had to call animal control and let them know, and they came and rescued them from us.
Not those ones. No, those ones. No, that was the red-tailed hawks that I got.
Oh.
And that was in the Greenlaw Apartments in Flagstaff in '78. When I was walking out back, you know, that massive, like 1,000-yard field.
Yeah.
It's like 200 yards wide, and it was amazing playground. And it's probably completely housed now. They probably built stuff on it. I don't know. But it was the one where we lived behind Safeway, and I found 2 red-tailed hawks underneath a log, and I looked down and they were just looking at me. I was like, "Hey buddies." And I just started playing with them and gave them some snacks, and And of course, they didn't eat. They were terrified of me. So I took them home and I kept them for 3 days, and they just fell in love with me, and they just followed me around everywhere I went. I was actually going to put the picture up of that. I did an AI picture of how I felt and what it was like, because we don't have any pictures of the red-tailed hawks.
Yeah.
But the two ravens in Taylor, do you remember their names?
I don't.
Heckle and Jekyll.
Okay.
Because Raven, that's a great name for a raven, because they're always heckling, they're always jeckling, they're just
Yeah.
they're kind of chaotic, but they're smart.
No, that was pretty cool. No, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a blast.
Running out of time.
And I'm taking care of my roommate Snake, as he's in Idaho right now, so I get to go in his room and feed his snake today.
No joy.
Yeah. Well, it's just dead food. It's the neonates, little pinkies. So you just warm them up, and the snake hasn't eaten any live food yet. So once it does, it won't want the pinkies, the dead pinkies anymore. But you have to warm them up so they have body temperature. And the snake's pretty cool.
Just stick them in your mouth for a while. It'll work.
Yeah, I'll next time we do a video, I'll have to throw up a picture of that.
All right, my last picture. Now this one is very symbolic, even though it's just of me standing there. This was at a time when everything was at a good trajectory for me. Like, I was in great shape, obviously. Starting to play some amazing ball, like beyond what I had ever played before. And it is a time when one simple phone call changed everything. And if I could go back in time, I would say, don't answer that phone. But I did. And the next 20 years was changed by events that happened because of that. And I gave up a lot and did not do a lot of things that I should have. And while I don't regret it, because where I am today, I wouldn't have, the things that I went through, I wouldn't have what I have today. I wouldn't have my wife. I wouldn't, have what I have. But at the same time, if I could go back in time, I would slap myself and say, stop that. Because one simple phone call changed so much for the rest of life. And that's the key thing about when you try to instill into your kids, make the right decisions, do the right things, because the little decisions you make now will last a lifetime. The little decisions you make will change the course of where you're going, and have a drastic effect on your life. And while, like I said, I'm happy with where I'm at, I'm happy with who I'm with, I'm happy with how my life is, I'm happy with who I am. I have no regrets of who I am, of any decisions I've made in my life. But if I could go back in time, I would grab the phone out of myself's hand. I'd say, look, self, don't do it. And I would hang up the phone and say, never answer that again if they call. And my life would be entirely different right now, And for the person back then, it would have been much better. For the person I am now, I've gained a lot of wisdom. I've done a lot of good things in my life. I am proud of the person I am. I'm proud of the decisions that I've made. All of them from, the time. I mean, I don't have any regrets of, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It changed me for the worse. I don't have any of those kind of regrets. But I do regret, and I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about when I do regret answering that phone. I do regret saying, sure, come on over.
Yeah, not good.
And if I hadn't done that, my life would be entirely different right now. I mean, entirely. And I still think it would have been a good life. I still think I would have, either way, I've lived a good life. I'm pleased with who I am. I'm pleased with what I've done, decisions I've made, the accomplishments I've had. But at the same time, I'm just like, I could make life a lot easier for myself back then.
Hindsight definitely is 2020. That's for
If I
sure.
could go back in time and just slap that phone out of my hands and say, dude, stop. Let me explain something to you. So, yeah, and I love that picture because, that was when I was starting to get in really good shape. I could actually do a little James Worthy dunk. Could never do a
Nice.
big, powerful dunk at all. Never anything like that. But I could do little baby James Worthy dunk.
I was watching Jeff's video and he was slamming two-hand
Oh, yeah.
like backwards,
Well,
across a reverse
well,
slam. I was like, whoa.
he had an inch on me, so that helps. But
Yeah.
also, he was in great shape. I mean,
That's
Well,
true.
he also has a much slighter build than you do.
yeah,
Of all of us, he was the leanest.
yeah. But so that's my last picture, and it's fun to look over these and think about life, and especially as we're getting older. It's fun to reminisce, look back on life, and because I mean, it's weird because I have, we all do, but we have parents that are gone, but I have friends that have passed, and I mean that's hard, you know, but it makes you think, okay, I've actually got more friends on the other side now than I do here. you know? And mom and dad are already gone. And we've already lost, one of our nieces. And you never know who's next, and it's got to make sure that you're doing what's right and
Yeah.
being the best you can,
You
to
want to
those that
hear?
are
You want to
around
hear a
you.
good thing about that, John? It gives us all experience, but one of the things I love is like what you say is do your best.
Yeah.
That's such good counsel because I have been doing my best here, and I'm telling you, things are falling into place here that I never thought possible.
Good.
So I mean, I'll be retired early, of course, but I'll go get a part-time job. I'll probably work at the U still. I like the U, but I'm a ward missionary now.
That's awesome.
I told him, hey, I want to be a ward missionary, and I said it by example, and I was like, let's do this, and I prayed for it, and when I got called in, it's like I wanted to say yep and walk out, but I already knew what it was,
Nice.
and so I'm pretty excited about it. So when I get retired, I'm going to go to the bishop and I'll say, hey, I want to go on a mission. I met somebody up at the temple grounds, the visitor center, that maybe I can be useful up there or something because the bus goes right to it. Everything is, like you said, every little choice you make does have a repercussion. But even though halfway through your life, if you make a bad decision, you can still make those good decisions and counter everything.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's good counsel. Just take advantage of the good things in life and do good.
All right. Any last words, Sam?
No, I'll have a question for you once recording stops. But
All right. Well, we're going to stop the recording then, and appreciate you all watching. So if you are watching and you got through this far, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll do another video like this, and maybe they'll get 12 views. We'll see. So see you later.
See ya.